We're here for an edition of GW Unspoken, and I have a very special guest here tonight named Joshy Kerr. How are you, mate?
I'm very good. I don't even know. You know what's crazy? Do I call you Gary or Mr. Woody still? Because
You can call me whatever you want. Joe Rogan. You call me Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Mr. Rogan.
Yeah. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, mate, thanks for having me. Thanks for the dinner too. It was beautiful.
Well, I just wish we had everything recorded during dinner time because there's some nuggets of gold. We've just come here, absolutely no plan of take. Just want to hear your life story from school since I've met you. And some of the things that you're talking about with your partner out there was amazing. So, yeah, mate, we'll get into it.
Well, let's go. Let's start.
Talk to me about school.
Yeah, school. Oh, geez, where do I begin?
I heard you have a lot of good, handsome teachers back there, but apart from, it's not really about me. Let's talk about you.
One or
what do you think of me?
Okay, one or two, but yeah, wouldn't know Mr. Dazinski was that good looking.
You're not listening to this.
No, it was good. I remember school, and it's crazy because it only just feels like yesterday. And I remember everyone used to say to me, you know, when you finish school, it goes, time flies like that, and it does. Like I got my 10-year anniversary coming up in a month, and I was speaking to my mates about it, and I was just like, where did that go? Like
crazy.
I'm at my teacher's house having dinner with him, doing a podcast.
Sounds almost weird, doesn't it? This is legal, by the way. Anyone who's listening to this is definitely legal. Josh has come in his own will and got his partner here just in case. So, yes. Talk to me about how was school? Like, obviously, you're pretty popular amongst your peers there, and you had a footy program there. Tell me a bit about your memories of that.
Yeah, so I remember I chose to go to Redcliffe too because, you know, a lot of my friends were going there, but also you guys had the football program, and I was obviously playing rugby league at the time. And, you know, obviously you can't see me right now, but if you look me up, I was 10 foot taller than every other kid my age, and I kind of, I guess, excelled in sport at those younger ages. And, you know, I loved it. I loved going there and being at Redcliffe. And, you know, I was very lucky in the younger years to, I guess, get scouted and noticed by a few, I guess, professional clubs. And, yeah, I guess my journey kind of started there into sport. Kind of a bit different mixing that with school because, like, high school to me, like, I wasn't ever the smartest kid. I was a smart ass, if anything. Loved being a class clown, loved the attention from everyone else. I guess coming with that was the football side and being scouted, and I guess more people kind of knew me in school. And because I was so big and so loud, it was hard not to know who I was, I guess. And yeah, I was just, you know, high school was fun, but everyone says they don't have regrets in life. But geez, I wish I was as smart and I knuckled down harder in school. And it's like one of those things that you just don't understand until you leave and you go. And like, geez, I just look back and just think I just did stuff all the time. I was just a smart ass. I just took it for granted, put it that way.
Yeah. I might get some of my students to listen to this podcast. So pull your heads in, you guys, and then you know what I'm talking about. You know what grade I'm talking about. So what made you enjoy rugby league? Was it the contact? Was it the mateship? Was there anything that actually in particular stood out to you? What attracted you to this game?
Well, the reason I actually started playing footy is only because my mates were playing it. Like, my old man made me start with soccer. He actually was an AFL player, so he loved Aussie rules, but he made me play soccer, and the reason was because apparently he heard from some bloke that soccer was the best thing to get your kids into because it's one of the best things for a kid's hand-eye coordination, how to kick a ball, run, look at other people, trying to put a pass in. It's good for their brain development and their feet and their body movement. And yeah, my old man just heard there's some other bloke talking about it. So, and usually when my old man does that, he'll just chuck me in there, you know, like. Yeah. So I actually played soccer because all my friends were playing soccer too, and then they started the transition, and I got new friends, and they were going to rugby league. So then I started playing rugby league, and I didn't know anything about it besides State of Origin. And I remember I used to idolise people like Darren Lockyer and Greg Inglis, and I guess what I used to love about it was, like I said, and I don't want to sound arrogant or anything, but because I was just so much bigger than every other kid my age, it kind of come a lot more easier then. Especially in high school, and especially when, like, you know, I've hit my growth spurt. It must have been like 5 years before everyone else did.
You're a massive thing.
Oh, no, I mean, I could have half passed for a bloody teacher aide or something.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you there. We talked about earlier your mum packing you like 4 lunch boxes too. Like, no wonder you're massive.
It was almost an esky, wasn't it?
She was a legend.
So, she was the best, and she'd stay up all night, you know, like things like that you don't actually – well, I never really, you know – appreciate it at the time. But God, I was going to school with the bloody almost esky filled with food.
I remember it.
And I was eating everything. I was eating like 3 sandwiches each lunch, and Mum was making up these chicken Caesar. Oh, they were the bloody best, I'll tell you.
Well, and I think it was funny because when I get back to towards your football at the start, because for us, when you're playing at Ready, we try to get you playing at fullback or in the centres. And I remember Robbo, who was coaching with me as well, used to drive us crazy. Like we'd say, because we thought we'd model the game like off Ignis. Like if all you need to go is get to the middle of the field, 15 minutes out, we'll put a bomb up. You're huge. You'll just catch a specky. I know AFL is chasing as well, and you'll score. But instead, you take a hit up in the first, a hit up in the fourth. And we're like, what is he doing? Like, if he just stays out wide and catches the ball, we've scored every time. But you got that transition where you just seem to love the hit ups and hit ups and hit ups. Is that how you found it?
I do. Like I love attack. Like I just love the game. Like I used to legit go to bed at night and dream about me playing football and playing Origin. I just watch highlights of Greg Inglis and people making breaks, and I just love like being on a footy field and then half seeing a bit of space. I just want you just want to have a run and hopefully break the line. But then I know what you mean. Like you don't realise at the time it's probably pretty selfish. So I was just doing that, but I wanted to just take runs and just make breaks. And in my head, it's just this imagination of me being a superstar. And that's why I loved it. I even do that now, which is crazy. Like I'm playing a complete different position, but I watch videos of Greg Inglis before, the same videos I watched as a kid. And it's just like, I just want to be like that. I love it. I guess that's what I used to just do. We had a game plan, but I was never sticking to it because I just love having fun and just kind of was living in my own world a little bit.
Well, I think that grew us as coaches too, because obviously we should have seen that. Like even now, we'll see you, playing on footy on TV on the NRL, and I'd say to my daughters, because they love sport too, and I'd go, hey, I used to teach him, I used to coach him, and they'd be like, Dad, it's not because of you, he's here. I'm like, yes, it is. Like he knows everything. But realistically, we're probably stopping that passion you had of, taking those hit ups and stuff too. And you were a big thing even back then. So,
well, you never know. So if I didn't have someone like you and Robbo there, I might not have actually ever continued that path with football. Like you guys did a really good job, I thought, when I was coming through. I think, we had that excellence program, but as a young man and as a young person coming through, you always get, I guess, influenced by these people that you grow up with, especially teachers and all that, because you do have an impact on kids' lives. And if you weren't there, I might not actually be here right now sitting and having a podcast with you. But you never know. But all I do know is that you were my coach in high school, and I am playing NRL right now. So take away from that what you will.
We'll have to talk to your manager about the percentage here. So that's perfect. Just making sure that's recording over there. Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
No, and so it's good, mate. And so then your journey was from high school. You were talking about how you got picked up by AFL, and I think there was Storm was in there as well. So take me through those decisions that you had to make with obviously you and your family. Got a lot of time for your family too. I still remember them talking to them fairly often. Your dad was a hard worker as well, and very well. I remember he used to listen to a lot of audio books or podcasts too, and always growing himself. So I really respected him for that too. But no doubt you would have had some interesting conversations and some big decisions to make.
Yeah, definitely. So what actually happened was I first started with AFL, and we're playing at school, and I got picked up by the Lions in their like young junior academy, and like I actually loved playing AFL a lot more than I did rugby league. It was a lot more fun, a lot more. Like you just run and jump up and catch a football, and you get to kick a goal. Like it was so fun. It was open, and then rugby league. I was lucky enough to get picked up in like a development squad for the Broncos. It was out at Aspley and something. And at the time, I think it was just a way for them to grab a lot of kids in their catchment area and just see if they do develop into anything. But when I was 16. The bloke who actually signed me to the Broncos just had signed to the Melbourne Storm, and he decided to take me with him. And I thought, oh my God, Greg Inglis is at the Melbourne Storm. I'm 100%. Yeah, so
yes.
I'm 100%. And obviously they had Billy Slater, they had Cooper Cron, Cameron Smith, and like it was like, well, what's the opportunity? And at that time, we were kind of discovering, well, I think I was playing centre when I was growing up at that age, and at the time they had about 17 other centres around the state because Broncos are so big and so massive.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what's the chance of me getting above these other guys? Well, I've got opportunity to go to a club that I love as well. Like I love the Broncos.
Yeah.
But Melbourne Storm was Melbourne Storm too. And so I was actually signed to Brisbane Lions and Melbourne Storm as their little junior pathway sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember I had to make the decision. And my old man was all for it. My old man was in there going, oh, mate, you know, Cameron Smith, mate, Billy Slater, look at this, you know, like, and I was sitting there this like, anything my old man used to tell me, I was just to eat up and just go, oh, yeah, really, yeah. So, you know, so,
good role model, yeah.
Yeah, so mum was just wanting me to be happy.
Yeah.
And that's what she's always been about. And as long as, you know, I'm happy, I guess it's the best decision, I guess. And, yeah, I decided with Melbourne, then went through there, and I was speaking to you about it before. I was kind of happy to be the kid at high school with those, you know, I was with Melbourne Storm and Brisbane Lions, or Joshy Kerr, he's the bloody athletic kid. Oh, he's going to be great things. But then school had finished and it was a different world. And life after school is obviously, as you would know, it's a lot different than like school. Like you're not seeing your mates every day. I didn't know what I was going to do for work. I didn't know what I was going to do with football. I was actually supposed to move down to Melbourne right as school finished. Yeah. But I was so scared to actually make that first decision that I actually said, look, I want to stay one more year here and play under 20s at Redcliffe Dolphins, because I just feel like I was telling them I just feel like I need to develop and grow a bit more and that.
Yeah. That was the excuse.
Well, that was it. And deep down, it was because I was afraid to go. I didn't know anyone down there. It was a hard decision. And you know, I was just happy to be that kid in school that just had the contract. And then when it came time to do it, I remember I moved down to Melbourne. I remember the day I left, I was at the airport. Mum was bawling her eyes out. Dad was that happy that I was moving out of the house. And
Dad suddenly got some food to himself.
I was eating all the food. So I remember the day I was at the airport, and God, I just remember Mum bawling her eyes out. And I remember just having, like, Dad was looking at me, and Dad was just like, oh, mate, yep, you're finally going down doing this. And I remember just going, yeah, Dad, yep, I'm going down. And I was like in my head nearly breaking down going, I was so scared. Yeah. I was shaking, but I was just put on this brave face just to impress my dad. But God, Mum, like, I can't look at Mum because she's bawling her eyes out. So eventually I go down there. I'm living in Melbourne. I didn't know a single person. It was hard. I actually knew a bloke I played football against, but that was as much as I knew about him. And I knew I was at the Melbourne Storm, and I never had like a proper professional training like they did do. And down in their 20s was notorious for having a very hard preseason, because Craig Bellamy, he would make it hard for the kids because he wanted to weed out who didn't want to be there. Yep. So you had to be at training every day, from Monday to Friday. You had to be there at 4:45 in the morning. Do your rehab, do all that stuff. And if you're a bit overweight, it's called Fat Club. Like, I don't know if you're allowed to say that in this day and age anymore, but I was in Fat Club. So you had to go there, you had to do extra swimming, you had to do extra breathing work. So what you do is they would chuck you in a pool, you'd hold a 20-kilo plate until you nearly pass out, and you jump up, you only had to have one breath, go back down, do it again. It's something to do with your lungs. It sounds bad, I know, like you tell people and it sounds shocking, and it kind of is, but when you actually start noticing the benefits for it, you go, you're not actually going to stay under there and pass yourself out.
Yeah. So more around mental toughness as well.
Exactly. It was one of the hardest things I'd gone into. I didn't know anyone. I was living at this these people's house, and they were looking after me. They were an elderly couple that were associated with the club. But yeah, I'd go from training. I'd drive to training, go back home, and then I would just stay in my room. And I was like depressed. Like, I remember just going down there going, I can't do this. We were doing like these runs, like the training they were doing was insane. So you train at 5 o'clock in the morning, you go to work throughout the day. I was going to work as a labourer. I didn't know what else to do. And my old man did it. And then you'd go back to training at night time and you get flogged again. And then I was just sitting there going, I'm not cut out for this. This is way too hard. And I remember I called my mum and dad, and I kind of had spoken to her. It was kind of, you know, planting the seed a few weeks. Like, I was there for about 2 weeks, and I was like, I can't do this. And then I kept speaking to her every week, nearly every night. And I was like, I can't do this. And I'd be so ashamed. I was so scared to see, like, Dad hear me say it, because kind of like, you know, scared the shit out of me. He's old school. So I knew Mum was like, you know, the lover of the house. So yeah, I just remember speaking to her, and she wanted me to come back home and do all this. And I was like, oh God, I just felt so ashamed. I remember looking and just thinking, all my mates back home, all my family, everyone that knew I was coming here, they were so happy, and I'm going to be the guy that quit. And there was a few other people that had actually quit, and it kind of made me feel a bit better, because I was like, okay, well, I've outstayed a few people here or whatever. But Yeah, I just remember, going back to it now, it's a bit hectic. But yeah, I just remember I was just so depressed and I was so sad. I'd never done it. And what actually helped save me too was FaceTime. So mum and dad used to put me on FaceTime and they'd put me at my spot at the dinner table and they would eat dinner and they would talk to me. And I'd speak. I'd be on the phone to them for hours every night. And they were like the happiest I'd be down there. And then, I just sort of stuck it out. And I just was so afraid of like letting people down back home and all the work that my mum and dad had done, like going away on trips for school camps and school comps and football stuff and all the boots they'd buy me, everything was like money, and they were working so hard. Dad was up at 4 o'clock every morning, getting home at 6, 7 o'clock at night. Mum was working at school every day, and then she would come home and like she'd make my sister and I breakfast, iron all that, like do everything. Like we didn't have to lift a finger, my sister and I.
Yeah.
So
it's a thankless job, isn't it? Like you realise what your parents actually do for you to give you, like not just you, I mean generally for people, just to give them that opportunity, isn't it?
Mate, you don't even notice it. Well, to be fair, you do notice it, but you just don't. Like I noticed it always, but I just would never say anything in case I had to do something. Like, you know, if I said anything like, "Are you doing all the washing?" Like I didn't want that to get put on me.
Come give me a hand then, Josh.
Exactly right. I was very lazy. Like I was a lazy kid, and you look back and you just think, God, like the transition from high school to the real world and those added pressures that you have in life, like especially from my parents, like you don't do these things. You don't work hard. You might lose your house. You might have to skip a meal or something, you know, and you don't realise that the work that your parents do for you until you really do get older and go through some hardships and realise this is what my parents were doing for me.
So I want to take on that bit of that journey you just took us on there. It was amazing to even have the guts and the resilience to go through that. And we know resilience is being able to get through the mud, but also bouncing back, right, when things get adversity and coming back. So to me, it feels like society's changed a fair bit. Where people won't do the hard yards or it gets too tough, and so I'm going home. And I know you said a few of your mates did that, and and I've heard of it happen at the Melbourne Storm, who was affiliated with the Sunshine Coast Falcons. I heard it in the Cowboys where they'd break people, and there'd be parents would be carpooling kids who are 17, 18 years old, and they wouldn't say a word in the car because they were completely broken, and there was a lot of people who unfortunately lost their lives and through anxiety, depression, and we know whether at the time we were hearing these stories, whether that was a good thing for young kids. And I suppose there's a balance between pushing them and showing them there's a breaking point, or it's actually giving you some mental toughness.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what's the right thing these days. Like you got through it, and you it sounds like you went through it, or you got through it because you were afraid of letting the people down who supported you.
Yeah.
So I wonder why things have changed. It feels like there's not much resilience like that anymore.
Exactly, and it is scary because like I wouldn't know what to do whenever I have kids. I wouldn't know what to do because, in my opinion, I think they should go through that. You need to go through that because it makes you work hard. It flicks a switch in you, and it makes you. There's always going to be tough times in life, and life is so not easy. Like, I've had it a lot easier than other people, and I couldn't imagine what other people do. People that got to wake up every morning, that are got to go to work and make sure, because if they miss one day, they might, like I said, they might miss bills. And, I think people do need to go through that, especially young footballers, if they do want to make football, because that's what builds you as a man, that mental, and knowing and having that, I've got that confidence that I knew I went through that hardship and I came out the other side.
Yeah.
But then, and I don't know if this is the right or wrong thing to say, but the way the world is now, it's like you get one person sad, and I understand it is hard and it is sad, but like now it's everyone's feelings are so, they're elevated up here. Well, I feel like you do need to, when you're at a breaking point, you do need to talk about your feelings and doing all that stuff. But at the same time, you need to learn how to get through things yourself as well and not be cuddled your entire life.
Yeah. And
it's scary because like what I'm saying right now, I don't know if that's the right or wrong thing. I want to raise kids one day. I want to raise like proud young men and women. And am I going to do that with them bubble wrap their entire life? Like we're speaking about it before. Like I don't know if I'm going to be able to call my son and daughter in the future. Like I don't know. Like it's a crazy world we're heading into, and it's scary. But I feel like the way that I went through it, it was tough.
I think too. Yeah, I think like you said, it's like. We talk about we want to do a really big program on rites of passage because even now we find that young men don't know where they fit. get 13 to 18-year-old men, and if they're an alpha male, it's almost they're aggressive, or they're violent, and so they I'll pull back a bit, and then there's more and more assertive women these days. And not saying it's wrong or right, but young men don't seem to see where their place is. And we want to build back to, go have a campfire, have a fish, have a swim in the river, father-son retreats, get them just to back on country and say, okay, let's just break down the barriers and chat.
Yep.
And I love how you talked about, we are more in touch with our feelings, which is great. We're doing this. My issue is that there's plenty of parents out there who think they're doing the right thing by mollycoddling the kids or solving the kids' problems, and they're not going through what you went through. They're not going through, and I think you need to give yourself a bit more credit, like going away from home. Where your idols are, yes, but you're going to live and breathe football, getting punished at 5 o'clock. That's resilience. That's work. That's sacrifice. And I don't think a lot of our kids get to that because our parents are solving the problems because they know they've probably been through some tough stuff and they don't want to feel that again. Yes. But it's actually necessary to have those boundaries.
100%. I feel like you said, in my opinion, is maybe the parents these days, they went through hard things and they just don't want their kids to go through. But they got to understand that those hard things made them the way they are. And it's scary because I just feel like they should go through things and learn how to get through things themselves. But there is a point where it does become too much for kids. And I've seen mates, like I remember I went on a footy camp and I had a mate that I grew up playing against and with. And this week, and he was happy as a Larry, anything, he was the next big thing. And then unfortunately the next week he took his own life, and it was crazy. It was like, what? It was like, you're the next big thing. You had the world at your feet. You don't understand the pressures that some people go through, but that's at a point where I think now it's becoming more acceptable that when you are at those points, you can talk about it and get through it. But I feel like you do need to get a few calluses on your brain, on your mind, to just toughen up and get through a lot of things as well.
It's a fine line, isn't it?
It is.
So take us through. I love how you're talking about that resilient stuff, mate, and like obviously credit to you going through that because it would have been tough to go through what you did. So Melbourne Storm, what happened from there?
Well, I stayed in Melbourne. I'd lived 1 year down there, and then they relocated their 20s team out of Sunshine Coast the following year because they were trying to build their brand up in the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
I was very lucky that I did that, came back, and I was actually kind of living back at home, like close to home. So everything was going really well. But then it got to a point where this is my last year at 20s. I was off contract and I didn't know what was happening. I played a few good games at the start of the season. Well, the start of the season, I had a cracker start, and all of a sudden my manager's getting the phone calls from a few clubs. One of them was the Dragons. One of them was Gold Coast Titans, and I think they might have been Bulldogs. Can't remember. I think there was two more. I think mine might have been Cronulla. I can't remember. It was something like that. But I remember the manager does, because I wouldn't have no idea what I'm doing. I just love playing football, and then I'm like, well, okay, now I've got an opportunity to go somewhere. Melbourne then came back and said they wanted me as well. Got to a point like I didn't know what was going on. It was so hard, and the reason I left Melbourne was at the time they had just won the comp and they had the best forward pack in the world. It was like insane. They had like Jesse Bromwich, Kenny Bromwich, Jordan McLean, Tohu Harris was in the middle. Who else? They have a few out of it. Ryan Hoffman, I think, was still playing. Yeah. I just remember they had this like freak forward pack, and they had Nelson coming through as well, and Christian Welsh was coming through. And I was like, what are the chances of me? Like, I don't want it, because there was a thing going around then as well that they had always had this talent that was at Melbourne that they had the best trainers, the best facilities, whatever. They'd have all these great players behind them that were ready to take that next step, but they didn't get that opportunity because there's all these great players ahead of them. And I was like, well, selfishly, I want to play NRL. What's my best chance of playing in NRL? And at that time, I kind of narrowed it down to it was going to be between Gold Coast Titans or St. George Dragons.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, both are good, but geez, I'd love to live on the Gold Coast because I'm just down the road from mum and dad. All my friends are there. Gold Coast, I was a young man. I was 19, turning 20. I wasn't 20, turning 21. I was like, how good would this be? Going down there, it'd be cool. They were both the exact same contract in terms of money and everything. And I was like, man, this would be awesome. but I knew deep down the best thing for me, for my life, and for me to actually grow as a young man was to move away from home, because I kind of knew from that year that when I did move back to Sunshine Coast near mum and dad, that I felt like I took the foot off the pedal, because I felt like I was in my safe space.
Comfort zone, yeah.
Yeah, my comfort zone. And so I made that decision. All right, I'm going to go down to St. George. They're a club that's got a proud history. They've struggled the last few years, and the only way you can go from there is up. Yep. And I wanted to be a part of something that where you don't probably they weren't where they wanted to be, but I wanted to be a part of something where, okay, we're going to build, and I'm going to be a part of this growth with the club, and we're going to win all these premierships. And that's where my head was at, and I was going to be a big part of that.
And who'd you know? Who'd you know down that way?
No one. I don't know.
So you're in the same situation moving to Melbourne.
Yep.
You had an easier cover zone to stay at the Gold Coast. You talked about your connections, how important it was with your family and friends and everything you knew.
Yep.
Mate, 9 out of 10 people would have chosen Gold Coast.
I know.
So was it from your past experience where you knew you had to test yourself mentally and physically, and that's why you went away? Yep. You think that's what made you grow?
I think I just knew that because everyone, kids are smart enough to know too, that they're like, okay, I knew I was safe at Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Because, mum and dad, like I said, mum and dad were there. It was decent money at a young age. Like, my friends were all there. I get to go back home and I'm the NRL player or in the NRL squad, whatever. But I knew the right thing for me was to make the hard decision and to go somewhere that was going to be a lot tougher. And I'm very glad I did that. You definitely grow as a person. You do a lot of right and a lot of wrong when you grow up, and I'm glad that I did both. Not always proud of it, but you only grow through that stuff. And I'm glad I went there and did that, because I feel like I would have got caught in that Gold Coast trap of being down there and around that environment. And Wollongong was far enough. It's about an hour and a half south of Sydney. It's a nice little town. It's very similar to Redcliffe, probably a bit more built up. But I was just glad that I made that decision. But when I went down there, that was like, they were notorious for having pretty hectic pre-seasons too. And I didn't realise that, because I just thought that was normal for NRL. And turned out we were just doing absolutely unreal shit for their training. Yeah. So
Really?
A normal team, like our fitness days, they're called conditioning, like con days. We were running 10 to 12 Ks. And I remember I went into camp with these other lads one time and I said, well, what are you guys doing? And they're like, about 5, maybe max, big hard days, probably 7 Ks. And I'm sitting there going, what? You aren't seeing red at the end of the day? You're not passing out? And they're like, no, why would we do that? And then I guess I found out the hard way, but I'm glad I did that, because every other preseason since those first few I've been there has been
not too bad.
Been tough, but not as bad as those ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just getting ready for your F45 training, mate. That's all. I know you and your partner's just doing that and told me about your F45. It's pretty fun, but good variety. Man,
something different too. And the thing is too, it's just a great community, F45, and it's great to go there with people that help push you. Everyone's in a different sort of, category. Like, I guess my partner and I decently look after ourselves, besides the odd ice cream here and there. But, there's some people there too that are just looking to lose weight or just get back into fitness. And it's just everyone, no matter who, everyone's so lovely, so supportive, and they just help push you. And it's just like such a good environment to be around. And I think that's just a Queensland. I don't know if it is just a Queensland thing, but I've only ever experienced that back home here in Queensland. So take your hat off if you're a Queenslander. There you go. Perfect. And we are sponsored by F40. No, we're not actually sponsored. We're looking for sponsorship. No, not really. Right. So then Dragons, and then recently, I know it's a big journey there, but recently then obviously you got your contract now back to Dolphins. Yep. How'd you feel when that came up? Well, it's like unreal. Like, I honestly, I've spoken about it a few times to different people, and the only way I could honestly explain it is that it is a dream come true. Like, coming through the Redcliffe Dolphins juniors, we're not actually technically allowed to say Redcliffe Dolphins because we're pigeonholing ourselves, but to me, it's always Redcliffe Dolphins here. They helped a lot with their development, and they did a lot of things outside of actual training to help. We did these development squads where they'd show us how to cook, how to iron clothes. We had to do public speaking, and that's like the worst thing ever. Like, people don't realise that it's actually it's the number one top fear in the entire world is public speaking. That's right. And it is pretty scary, but once you do it a few times, like even now, like I'm nervous. I get really like, you get scared because it's scary.
You're not scared now on the podcast, though.
Yeah. Oh, like you get a little bit nervous before it. And
I'm actually not happy that your voice is deeper than mine on this podcast. I've got to try and change this, actually. Sorry, a bit of a set kick on you. Sorry.
No, but I was so grateful for what they done, and I loved it. But I used to play Colts, and then you'd always play Colts, then A grade, then the Cup would play.
Yep.
And it was just a community thing, similar to what I was saying about F45s. That everyone down at Redcliffe, they'd pack out the hills, everything. I used to love it. You look up on the scoreboard, there'd be someone's kids up on the scoreboard putting the scores up. It was just a real family place down here. And when I went down to New South Wales into the Dragons, and I was playing Cup there for my first few years, you don't actually get that. Like that's not a thing. And that was a bit of a shock to me, because I thought, well, we're like in the it was all the leftovers from the NRL squad would play Cup there.
Yeah.
And there was some decent players there playing at the time, like Patrick Herbert, Reece Robson, who's playing there now, Jay Field, who just won a comp over in Super League. Like, we had all these gun players that were there, and no one would go to the games. It'd be a handful of people. It was like crazy. And then you come back to Redcliffe, and it's like the whole town's there. It's a community thing. So I always, in my head, knew that Redcliffe should be the next NRL spot.
Yeah.
And there's a funny story that I speak about with the CEO of the club at Dolphins here. Is when we were at the Dragons, we had the CEO, Todd Greenberg, at the time. He came in and spoke to us about something because, I don't know, one of our players stuffed up or something, and he had to come in and talk about what are the effects of that and how it affects sponsorship and all this sort of stuff. And I always sat down at the front because my eyesight's shocking, and I hated walking up these stairs to the other chairs. But I remember I waited, and he was saying, if anyone's got any questions, just wait around after. So he finished his talk at say it was 1:50, and I had gym at 2:00, and I was going to get penalties and a fine if I missed it. But I remember I stayed, and I wanted to talk to him, and they're like, Curry, what are you staying here for? I said, I just had a question for him. And they said, mate, you got gym now. What's the question? I'll ask it. And this was the football manager at the time. And I said, can you just please ask him when Redcliffe Dolphins are going to come in? And he looked at me and he goes, all right, Kerry, yeah, no worries. Anyway, I remember he came down, it was a few days later, and I went to him and I said, hey, mate, did you ask him that question? He goes, oh, yeah, I did. He said they'll come in 2032. And I was like...
the Olympics.
I was like, I gutted it. But I remember my first thought was, there's definitely new advancements in science, and I'll be playing football till I'm late 30. I'm definitely going to stay around to try and play for Redcliffe Dolphins. Anyway, that turned out to be, I think, a lie, like a dead set bloody lie. But the opportunity came. They were talking about it, and I was picked in. I got luckily picked in this Origin squad at the end of 2021 or 2020. Yeah. So known as the worst ever state of origin, the Queensland Origin.
I think we won that again, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we won that. Yeah, shock horror. But it was one of the best experiences ever. But I actually was introduced to Wayne Bennett. He was the coach. Yeah. And I'll never forget the first words he ever said to me. And I remember I was just coming into a squad. I don't even know how I got picked. Bottom of the barrel. I don't know what was going on, but
that's not true. But anyway, keep going. Yeah.
I remember I walked into camp, saw Wayne Bennett, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's Wayne Bennett." Walked up to him and I said, "Hey mate, how you going?" And I remember he looked at me and he said, You better get on your hands and knees and thank Ben Hornby for helping you get picked in this team because he gave you a massive rap." I said, "Oh, beauty, the coach hates me." So, but since then, we created a pretty, I guess, a tight connection. Me and the big freaky man is what I call him. But yeah, and then I was speaking to him, and he was kind of getting told because he had just left South Sydney, and he was getting ready to move. Like he was saying that he was going to come back up to Queensland. Yeah, and I think at first he was going to possibly sign at the Cowboys. He was looking at signing, but then I think they told him, "Look, there might be another team coming in," but I think they told him it might be Ipswich Jets. Yeah. And he wanted that anyway because he lives in a farm at Warwick, or he's got a farm at Warwick. Yeah, that's our side. Anyway, so I remember sitting there going, "Wayne, mate, I tell you, I promise you it's going to be Redcliffe Dolphins." And he looked at me and goes, "What, you really think so?" And I was sitting there just like, honestly, I should have been sponsored by Redcliffe at this point. Girls, I said, "Mate, you have no idea. They're so rich. Mate, they got a great junior base. The community's unreal, all this stuff." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And I said, he looked at me and he goes, he called me Big Freaky too, which is funny. And he goes, "Freaky man, if they become an NRL team, you'll be the very first person I call." And as soon as it became an NRL team that day, I got a phone call from Wayne Bennett.
No way.
And I answered the phone. I knew exactly what it was about. And I was just like, I answered the phone, and all he says is, "Big freaky man."
Did he ask you for the next lotto numbers, mate? The manifestation is ridiculous.
Mate, I was honestly, like, when you see what it's like down here at the grounds and the community and what it's like and what it actually does for this area, and it's crazy to see that's not only happening in Redcliffe now, but it is the entire north side of Brisbane.
Yeah.
It's like they've been calling out for another NRL team here for years.
Yeah.
But it was just awesome to see, and it just did not come as a shock to me. I always believed in it, and then I got the opportunity to sign here. And don't you worry, like I did everything in my power to sort of make sure that happened. But at the same time, I felt like I owed the Dragons something because I was there for 6.5 years. I wanted to win a comp, and I felt like we always had the team to do it. But things happen. Lost some players, got some new players. We lost some games we should have won. Like, it was just frustrating. But I think everything for me was just screaming, "Come home and make sure you get here." And
you've done you earned your stripes, didn't you? You went away and you actually did that, though, didn't you? You went to Melbourne, you went to St George, and it just seemed to be where you're supposed to be.
And you look back at life, and at the time, it is so scary. Like, and I don't know what it's like for everyone else, but for me, like I'm bloody 6'5", I'm bloody 115 kilos now. When I went away, I was almost the same size, and I was scared shitless when I went away. You have no idea, like, just mentally inside, it's one of the hardest things you can do. And I look back and I'm so glad I did it, because you only grow through that. Like, you
should be proud, mate. It's amazing.
Well, I am proud of myself for doing that because I knew I made the right decision at the time, and that was going to be beneficial in the long run. And look, and now I'm back home at Redcliffe at the Dolphins in an NRL team, and like, it's just it's a dream come true, not just for me but my family. Like, we sit there, we're just like, how crazy? Like, this is just insane.
Like a dream come
true. It's
the
Dolphins in the NRL. Like, I can't believe it. Like, and you got Wayne Bennett as the coach, like Wayne Bennett, the super coach, and then underneath him's Christian Wolf is like, he's like, he just won 3 in a row in the Super League. He's unreal. Like, one touted as the next big thing in coaching. Like, it's funny how life works out when you do the little things right, I guess. So,
and Josh, I want to talk really quickly just about, there's a couple of words you used in that compared to like when you went away, but you said that Redcliffe had the connection and had the community. Like, how powerful is that for a side, but also for yourself personally? Like, how important are those words to you?
Oh, definitely. Like, I think whenever someone ever wants to go somewhere, or whoever you are, you want to feel like you're part of a family and part of a community, and that's what it was always like here.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, when I moved away, it wasn't just my mum and dad and family, it was that Redcliffe family as well.
Yeah.
And it's crazy coming back and them remembering me and welcoming back with open arms. And it is a massive difference, because when we were down there at the Dragons and we weren't going so well, sometimes the community wasn't as nice to you as what it should be. And I feel like no matter what we went through when we were in a junior squad here in Redcliffe, it was always love and always backing you. And no, mate, don't worry about that, mate. It's always next week. And even this year, like, the boys started the season strong, but halfway through, unfortunately, injuries caught up with some of the boys, all this stuff. We lost like 7 or something games in a row, and not once did our community turn on us.
No.
And people don't realise how powerful that is. And to have a player and people that want to play, and the boys even spoke about it at training, how good it is, the fans that we have here compared to other clubs.
That loyalty.
Exactly. And I get that there's a passion about it, but when you got people that will just show up in the rain, no matter how good or bad you're going, that's when you want to play your better footy.
Yeah. That's good, mate. And it's in your relationships too, right? Like, I think it's one of the biggest things that you talk about, family, and you've got a lovely partner now too that you've met at St George. Did you meet that?
Yes.
So you dragged her along back to Queensland, and
somehow I did it. She's changed my life for the better. I definitely think that too, and that's crazy too. When you grow up and things just happen, and she's sitting in the room too right now. She's looking at me with a big smile.
Nice things,
getting the brownie points, perfect.
You can pay me later for that. No worries at all.
No, it's been a great journey so far.
Yeah, and that's great. And like I said, really proud of where you've come from, even from knowing you at school level, but always watching you in your footy progress, but also as a young man, you're always, I was a guy, as a kid at school too, often I was talking to him today. Actually, he said, you remind me of Josh. I'm going to talk to him tonight in the podcast, and you'll have to tune in, mate. And he said he always just say, "Hey, how you going?" And never knew whether he was giving me a hard time, like being a smart aleck, or actually being genuine. But you're always being genuine, saying you actually smiling, how you going, how's things going, and it sort of made your day, or made my day for sure. Tell me a little bit about your Indigenous heritage. You're a proud Indigenous man. All stars, all that kind of stuff. Is that a big passion for yours? Like, does that have a huge, like you see it on TV and you feel like I can imagine what it must feel like to be like in amongst that.
Oh man, it was crazy. So I actually was the second player ever to actually play All Stars before I'd actually debuted at NRL. And I remember that was my first. There's a lot of firsts in that. One of the funniest ones was that was the first time I'd actually ever spewed my guts up before a game, like disgusting, like so bad. Like I remember I got picked for this. I remember the day I got picked was I was playing basketball at Dragons training at the end. We were shooting hoops with, I think it was me and Jack DeBellin and a few of the other boys. And the team manager came down and he saw me and he goes, "Kerry, can you please come up here, man? I need to have a chat to you." And I've just gone, what have I done now? What is going on? And you just have like, oh mate, I've done something. Like my head's just racing. Go, what have I done? Anyway, he takes me upstairs, takes me into Paul McGregor's office, Mary, and he goes, "Kerry, mate, have a seat." And I'm just going, what is going on? And he said something. I can't even remember the words. He just said, "Mate, you're going to be playing the Indigenous All Stars." And I remember at the time, like there's stuff that actually happened before in my life in the previous season that went through depression. I actually got dropped to local league, so lower than thing, because I was going through a bit of a tough time mentally and wasn't appreciating what I had at the Dragons.
Yeah.
And I remember I worked my way back as hard as I could. In my off season, I trained every single day. I worked my way back, and this was before their season had even started. So I earned their coach's respect back. And he's the one that helped get me in the team. And I thought he was lying when he told me. So I actually offered him out to fight him. Because I was like, that was one of my dreams, to play All-Stars. Because like I was, Indigenous. Like when you're Indigenous and you grow up and you watch Preston Campbell and you watch Jonathan Thurston and Greg Inglis and Big Georgie Rose and people like that. I used to love Greg Bird.
Yeah.
I used to love Birdie. And mate, I remember he told me, and I remember like my first instinct was just sitting it there. And like legit, I remember just going like, "How dare you? Like, why would you ever joke about?" Like I was because I was passionate, and
defensive, sure.
And I was like, "What?" Like I was like, "Don't!" I said, "Don't you dare!" Like, and he was sitting there going, "Whoa, Kerry, mate!" Like, "No, you're in." And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I was going to start crying. I was like, "What do I do?" Like my heart was sinking. I didn't know what to do. I was hugging him. I was jumping up and down. I was acting like the biggest kid.
Yeah.
I think the first phone call I made was to my mum and told her, and then she was bawling her eyes out, just crying, and then she was screaming, and I called my dad. I think I actually tried to call my dad first. He never answered his phone. And then I called mum and then called dad again, called my nanas, let them know. And it was just one of the most proudest moments. But then going into camp for the first time and meeting all the boys, I was so scared, so quiet. But they, again, like Indigenous community is about everyone being together and being welcomed and being loved. And it was like you felt a part of it and loved and respected. And I was like, this is insane. Like, this is like, man, I remember like the person who made me the most welcome was Foxy, Joshy Kerr. And I've had a great relationship with him since then. And man, I just remember doing everything. Like even we had to practice our war cry before. And they're like, "Let's all do shake leg," and that. And I couldn't do a shake. I still don't know how to do it properly. And I remember he said to me, and he goes, I said, "Bro, I can't do it. I'm too like embarrassed." He goes, "I said I can't do it." And he goes, "Bro, that's the best thing." He's like, "You don't have to do it, but it's like even if you look silly when you're doing it, you're showing a kid that you're proud no matter how you look like."
Nice.
And that's always stuck with me in my head. And I was very grateful to hear that from him. But yeah, playing that game, I remember the day of the game. I woke up in the morning. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't sleep the night before.
Yeah.
I was just so scared. I just had all these scenarios run through my head. I was like, "Oh my God, who am I up against? Oh my God, it's the best, one of the best 4-packs I've ever seen." It was like Adam Blair, Jesse Bromwich. I'm pretty sure Hargreaves was playing, Nelson was playing. They did like one of the best 4-packs ever. And here I am playing in the middle, my first ever game. Like never played NRL or anything. And so I'm staying up all night scared. Wake up in the morning, Dad rocks up at the hotel. Dad, what are you doing here? Oh, mate, I need to come see you, mate, to see how you're going. Like, let's go grab a coffee, mate. Let's go grab a coffee. So
your old man's a legend.
Oh, mate, he's a legend. Had a coffee. I was like, I can't relax. Anyway, the bus pulls up.
You remind me of year 10 maths, so I keep going.
I remember the bus pulled up and I had all the kit on, all the pre-game stuff on, and I got on the bus and I just remember everyone sat on the bus and we went to take off. He shut the door and I said, oh, sorry, mate, can you just open up the door again? And I ran off the bus and spewed up in the garden right in front of everyone. And I was it was the only time it's ever happened. It was one of the most embarrassing things. I got on the bus and all the boys were just pissing themselves laughing at me. It was so embarrassing. It was one of the greatest moments ever. And doing the war cry, feeling the passion and the pride in myself and my people, in the crowd, and the respect from the Māori side as well.
Yeah.
Man, it's one of the greatest games and one of the greatest, like, feelings of connection to my culture that I've ever had.
Good on you, mate. I'm proud of you. And I even say, like, even community, connection, culture, you talk about gratefulness, all those things that make you the success that you are, mate. So really, really great to hear that story. So thank you for sharing with that too.
Appreciate it, brother.
So
Thanks for
good.
listening.
So good. All right, well, we're going to finish off with a bit of fun now. But before we do, what's some advice? Like, I know you probably get this a lot, but if you're a young Josh Kerr again, you're talking to yourself, right? Sounds a bit weird, but you're going to talk to yourself who's 14, 15, mad rugby league fan. You talk about how you love English, like you had your role models and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you knew you had to go through that much pain to get to where you are now.
Yeah.
Would young Joshy do it again?
Yeah.
And what advice would you say? You got a 14, 15-year-old who's got no idea what hell they have to go through to make it to what you're doing at the moment.
Oh, I can't put that on me. What would I say to myself? Because, geez, I don't even – God –
you got a 14-year-old now who's got plenty of potential and you know what they're going to go through.
Yeah. There was just always, I don't know if it was an ego or something that I had when I was a kid, but like, I remember we had people come in and tell me that you couldn't do something.
Yeah.
And I remember they used to come in and tell us the realistic chance of you playing NRL, anyone in this room, was a 2% chance.
That's right.
And I used to go immediately, I'm going to be that 2%. Like it used to make me angry because I just feel like, you're trying to kill the mood. Like the NRL people would come in and I get they did the right thing because they try to promote getting educated and doing that. And I wish I did listen to more of that. But I knew that I wanted to play NRL and I'll do whatever it takes. And I went through those hardships and like I said, I nearly quit when I went to Melbourne. But in the back of your head, you just know like there's a dream that you got and honestly, you can make it work. And there's a lot of people that were a lot more talented than me than I was growing up playing with, and they just – I guess they didn't believe in themselves. They chose to either go out drinking or do whatever else. And, I was lucky enough that, I had great friends around me in high school and great mentors such as yourself and my parents and everyone that helped push me in the right direction. And I don't know if I would say anything because everyone would say the same generic answer. Don't give up and don't do that.
Yeah.
But if there's a bit of advice, I just don't know. The easiest one to say is don't ever stop working hard. Like that's the thing. Hard work beats talent.
100%.
Obsession beats hard work, and I feel like I was always obsessed with rugby league.
Yeah.
So that's
probably,
a good
answer, mate.
That's probably the easiest one I could give anyone.
That's
but
good.
if there is a kid listening to this right now, like there's always going to be, I just remember for me, like they're always going to tell you, look, make sure you have backup options and that. And I always remember thinking, well, if I've got a plan B, that means I'm not completely zoned in on my plan A.
Yeah.
And I'll make that work no matter what. And I'll go down swinging. And
always a workaround, right?
That's right. Exactly. So
that's awesome. All right. Well, look, I've given you some serious questions now and you've answered them very well. So I'm going to give you a bit of fun now. So I'm going to put you on the spot. We're going to do a bit of a word association game. So you come up with one or two word answers for these ones. And you've got not much time to answer them. So ready for this?
Oh, geez.
You can't see anything. Ready?
Yep.
F45.
Fun.
Food.
Delicious.
Alcohol.
Never again.
The Dolphins.
Family.
Pre-season training.
Scared.
I thought I had to beep you out then. Your missus giving you Oreo ice creams.
Naughty.
Talked about the temptation. Having a win in NRL.
Oh. Ecstatic.
School.
Regrets.
Your parents or family?
I don't know what word for it. Grateful.
Okay. Brussels sprouts.
Disgusting.
That was a bit of a random one there, wasn't it? I just thought I'd throw that one in there.
No, honestly, like I
What's
thought
that one?
there was going to be something like that. No, I'm not a Brussels sprouts person.
No? What about...
What are they? Like, what even are they?
They're little cabbages, aren't they?
I don't know. I'm not a fan of cabbage either. Are they? Oh, Mrs. nodding her head at me.
What about oysters?
Love them.
Prawns?
Love 'em.
That's not even on the list here. I'm just sort of asked that because
I love
I
seafood.
had a nutrition lesson today. Okay, we'll move on. I was going to say, here we go, favourite food.
Can't do that to me. You know damn well I love my food.
Joshy's got his last meal and it's all over. Yeah, you're gone. It's all over. You got the last meal.
Oh, so for the meal, I'll let us
You
start.
can't have a 3-course meal, mate. I know what you're going to do.
Okay, damn it.
I know you'd finish off with Oreo ice cream. So
Yes. I love I love when you buy a decent thick sized beef ribs, like full stack of beef ribs or pork ribs. I love ribs, big meaty, like the American barbecue sort of thing. I love that. It's the meaty, but I love seafood too, like big lobster or big crab, like mud crab or something. That am I allowed to have mud crab, but you can just somehow disintegrate the shell.
I just can't believe that you're smiling while you're talking about this. So it's just one question on a piece of paper.
You're making me so hard. You know I'm on a diet too. Now I'm craving these food.
Diets.
Oh my God.
All right, we'll move on. What about a favourite drink?
God, I can't go past like if it
You
was
love your lattes, don't you, surely?
No, I do love a cappuccino.
Yeah?
But if I had to have one drink and I was being fair dinkum, I do love a chalky milk.
Yeah?
I don't know why I love it so much. Can't go past. You know what? I had Fanta in Europe recently and it's a lot different. And it's like refreshing.
Is it?
It was very delicious. High in sugar. I'll probably never drink it.
It's not an ad for Fanta, mate. So just calm down a bit, please. All right. Favourite song at the moment?
I'm loving this guy called George Ezra, you know, like my house in Budapest, my hidden treasure. You know that guy?
No, keep going.
No, he's got a song out called Green Green Grass. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It just pumps it. Like, I put it in,
Blue sky.
yeah. It just like I put it on in the morning with my missus, and it just gives me the right mood to wake up to. So
Nice.
it just puts me in a happy mood at the
Very
moment.
good. All right, put you on the spot. What about semi-censored? Do you have a best joke at the moment?
No, I don't. I'm very off the cuff.
Oh, yeah?
I wouldn't say I'm witty, but I'm
Cheeky. Be cheeky. For
cheeky.
Sure.
I'm very cheeky. I haven't got a joke. I'm not a joke person, but
I told the kid once today, I thought it was like, why the chicken cross the playground?
why?
To get to the other slide. But they thought it was very ordinary. No good?
I got a few good dad. I've heard a few good dad jokes, but I can't think of them like that. You know what I mean? Like
we'll come back to that.
Well, there you go.
Who's the biggest pest beside yourself in NRL?
Oh, Jesus, so many of them. There's so many of them. Remember Jay Field was always one. They used to do this thing all the time. It's called cupping the locker. So what they do is they fill a cardboard cup up with water. You put strapping tape on it and they strap it to the door. And anytime you'd open up, mate, I've seen some beauties get done before. And I'm not going to say who it was, but it was hilarious. He kept getting it done to him. And this was someone who had won a premiership. He was a bit older and he got it done to him and he cracked the shit and he went up and had to speak to the team manager. It's just like they're bullying me. And I was like, mate, you're getting cut with water, mate. There's worse things going on. I remember it was so funny because he wrote it off. He came to training on a bicycle every day. Like he had a little pedal bike. And we were sitting there waiting for him to come out. And you just see this massive man just jump on his little bike and just it's like, what?
Everyone's different, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
The biggest legend you've ever played against or look up to?
Do you mean like legend as like great bloke or actual legend?
Probably in footy. Like, is there any like legend? Like, I know you talk about Inglis a fair bit.
Here's a funny thing. I debuted in his last ever game.
Wow, there you go.
I know, round 2, 2019. And it was one of the proudest moments. Like, I remember I tackled him and I'm pretty sure he steamrolled me, but it was I think he might have tripped over my body or something. I don't know. But I was versing this is when he had like him, Sam Burgess, all the bee's knees players. And I remember thinking, I'm debuting. And oh my God, like it was like a mad moment. all the stuff. And I remember thinking, oh my God, Greg Inglis plays for him. And then I just remember I got to play in that game, and it was I didn't know that at the time, but that was his last ever NRL game. And lo and behold, so I played round 2 was against the Rabbits at Cogra, and we lost that game. And my last ever game for the Dragons so far was against the Rabbitohs at Cogra, and we won.
Way.
We won. I know, it was crazy. So
That's mad.
I remember sitting there, my old man, I didn't even know. And my old man, because it was going through a bit of a back and forth about an early release this year from when I did move from Dragons to the Dolphins, and I didn't think I was going. It kind of got to a stalemate, and I wasn't going to end up going. And my old man was just sitting there, and he was always at the back, and he was on the lung lollies, the old darts dad, and he goes, yeah, you're going, mate. It's just right. That's how destiny works, mate. And then lo and behold, whenever he says stuff, it usually happens. And then it's the worst thing ever, because he'll look at me, he goes, what'd I tell you? What'd I tell you, mate? You know?
Shut up, mate. You're always right. All right. Best ways you find to relax?
I love playing video games just to take my mind off.
Yep.
You know, just something that I've always done as a kid, because I actually grew up in Narangba, and my dad actually – this is another one for my dad, sorry. I'll stop boring you with all these stories after this one. But he grew up in Narangba. I didn't have any friends around the neighbourhood, didn't have any neighbours. I did when I was really young, but then they moved away. And I never knew why. My sister and I always wanted us to move to Redcliffe so I could be around my friends.
Yeah.
And Dad actually had this thing that he told me a few years ago, and he goes, the reason why I did that was, you know, when he grew up, you know, whenever they would get in trouble by their parents, they'd run away and do bad things with their mates.
Mm.
And he kind of moved me away from that. And then I look back at it and I think, oh my God, you're actually so right.
At the time, it would have sucked.
And my mates were always, they're the best ever, but they're experimenting with things in high school and that. And I never did. And, you know, I guess you look back on it, you don't realise the little things that you're actually grateful for in life. That you might look at something bad now that's going on, but then you'll look back on it and just know, put a mental note in your head that you might look back on this and go, well, why did that happen? And now I know that. It makes you more grateful because your parents had the foresight to help you with something like that. Yeah, so
it's to hear that.
It's crazy.
Good. And we talk about a lot of that with our technology, with our kids too, about how, you know, gaming's not bad or social media's not too bad as long as it's not an addiction, you know, as long as you can actually give it up. And so it's good you can have that bit of a break. All right, a couple more quick ones. What's your goals in rugby league now?
Origin, Australia, Premiership.
Oh, nice. That's very good.
Play every game. I want to be one of those 200 plus NRL players, but that's my dream, to put on that maroon jersey and that green and gold jersey.
Beautiful. Nice. I'll be arguing with my wife on the couch with that one because she's a Blues supporter. We won't talk about that. And is that what's your major goals in life? So it's footy. What about goals away from footy?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's crazy now. Starting to get a bit older, starting to think about that now, and we're not too sure. My partner and I I've always been a kid in my head, and I still act like a kid, but now we're thinking about family, kids, dogs, houses. So I think the next big step for me is probably a house, because that's, you know, I feel like everyone should always have a house or whatever, and that's my opinion. That's the next big scary step for me, is to do that and take on that journey, and then marry the soulmate. Yeah, no, I'm getting the eyes of doom right now. So then kids and dogs. Not sure which order at the moment.
Don't you need a plant first, and if you don't kill a plant, you move on to a dog, and then if that works, and you get married.
Can you tell her that? Because all the plants are dead, or they've always died now.
Well, you're just going straight to marriage and kids. That's fine. That's just fast track.
I'm sweating.
No, you've met your partner here tonight. It's very lovely. So last question of the night. This is the biggest question. So I know we've gone through a fair bit of real serious stuff. This is even more serious for you. You're down to your last $10.
Yep.
What are you buying? So your ribs, you can't buy ribs for that.
No, I was just thinking, geez, can you buy half a rib? No, you can't.
Can't buy half ribs, no.
God. I think the silly answers would be to buy a lotto ticket or crypto or Bitcoin or something like that. God. If I was down to my last ever $10, I must be doing pretty bad at life, and If I was down there and I was with my missus, I'd probably buy a flower or something. Or just something, just like appreciate.
There's going to be a marriage online here. This is perfect.
Mate, I'm getting that many brownie points. Hopefully I might get a massage or a back tickle tonight. So that's all.
I thought you were going to say a cappuccino each, but that's even better. Yeah. Mate, that's good. I want to remember that in case I'll get asked that question. That's very good, mate. Mate, it is an absolute honour that you've accepted my invitation to come over. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you guys both came over for dinner tonight. And, mate, very mature head on you for 27-year-old, and we wish you and your partner all the best, and obviously with your footy career. But, you know, things above that is going to make you the person you are. And, mate, you keep talking about being lucky and you're fortunate and that kind of stuff. It comes with hard work. It comes with resilience. It comes with being the values and the person you are. So whether it's time for a house or time for kids, mate, you impart those values, you know, your life's going to be unbelievable. So, mate, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate you coming in, mate.
Mate, thanks so much.
You're a
I've
legend.
loved it. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.